Welcome to the Metal Jesus Rocks pod. No, what are we doing?
Sure.
Yes, welcome.
Yes. Super prepared, as always.
I haven't been drinking, I swear.
Not as drunk as you think you are, anyway.
Yeah. So, my name is Jason, known as the Metal Jesus on YouTube. This is my buddy John Riggs right here.
Yep. I'm Metal Jesus was already taken, so I just have to use my actual name. Yeah, nothing fancy.
Yeah. So, welcome to our panel. We really appreciate you guys coming. We wanted to kind of just do a Q&A. We used to back in the day try to like plan stuff for panels, and it never quite worked out right. The thing is that he and I cover so much ground on our YouTube channels, whether it's video games or collecting or game hunting or travel or whatever, music. We just found that over the years it's better to do a Q&A. You guys typically have the more interesting questions and subjects, so that's kind of what we're going to do.
Yeah. So tell me about Kiss.
And we can do an entire Kiss episode if you guys want, which is what we ended up doing last night. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think
we can start immediately, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have should we do an introduction, like an official one? Like John,
if you'd like.
Tell these people about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is John Riggs. I come from Washington State. Was born and raised in Yakima, Washington, where I currently reside once again, and got into collecting. I got into collecting in the late 90s when I realized that I don't see Nintendo games as much anymore. So like games like EB games, software, etc. I noticed that they were like, when they were putting them on clearance, I was realizing, wait a minute, I may never find these again. I knew emulation was a thing, but still I like the notion of popping a game into a game system and playing it, because I know it'll work every time. What are you drinking there?
It looks like beer, doesn't it?
I was going to say, wait a minute.
No, this is actually a mix of sweetened and unsweetened tea. I saw it in there. I was like, that sounds good.
All right, that's that. Welcome to Tennessee. So we have, from there, that's when I started noticing that these things I may not find these games ever again. So that's when I started buying one of everything I didn't have yet, especially for the NES, which is my favorite system. And it wasn't until I had a bunch of games, then I got married, relocated, had children, and all of my games stayed at my parents' house at the time. And it wasn't until I think it was like the early 2000s. Oh, it was like the early 2010s where somebody sent me a list from like Racket Boy or something, saying, here are the top 10 rare Nintendo games. And a friend of mine was like, oh, you like old Nintendo stuff? Here's this list. And I'm looking at this list. I was like, I have more than half of these. And they're just marinating in my parents' basement. So when I moved back to Yakima, rescued them from my parents' basement. There was a basement flood when I was gone. And so I lost all of the boxes. Fortunately, I'm not a box collector, but like my console boxes, I still had my original, like when I bought my Sega Genesis, and I still had my receipt from Radio Shack in there and stuff like that, or Montgomery Ward. I lost all that stuff, but fortunately, I kept all my loose games in Tupperware, so those were all safe. And then I was going back through this game, and I was like, I forgot what I grabbed. And I'm pulling out the typical stuff too. I'm pulling out games, like here's I can't even think of it off the top of my head. No, TNC Surf Design, stuff like that. But I was like, oh, I forgot I bought Power Blade 2 for $10. I forgot I bought Bucky O'Hare for $5, all these games. So then from there, I'm like, well, since I already have all these games, and now it's like, oh, people are collecting a full set. I already had most of the heavy hitters out of the way. So then I went back and tried to find all the commons. Of all the commons, I never completed my set, but I got to a point where there's 678 licensed US games. I had like 620, 630 or something like that near the very end. And that's when you start realizing, oh, I don't have Predator. I have all the other ones, but just like not that one. Then when all the rest were sports games, I'm like, okay, I'm not paying more than $5 for a sports game. So went from there. And that was about it. And then I ended up running into you at just the local area conventions in the Northwest, which we averaged, for a while there, it seemed like we averaged something at least like every other month. Yeah. Between Seattle, between Cowlitz, which is a county, between Seattle and Portland, between Portland and all that. And I don't know, we just kind of started hanging out and saw each other all the time. And here we are today, I guess.
That's a beautiful story, man.
Thank you. I know.
My name is Jason, and I have a YouTube channel, Metal Jesus Rocks. Sorry, I have a little bit of a lisp right now, so I hear it. I don't know if you guys do, but basically, I got my start working at a company called Sierra Online back in the mid-'90s. I worked there for most of that decade. Met my wife, Rebecca, and my good buddy, Drunken Master Paul, and a bunch of other people at that time. And I've always been into making videos, and I've always been into collecting games and music and stuff like that. And so when YouTube came along, I was like, oh, I could do that. So that's kind of, I just love doing all that, talking about video games, making videos. And so kind of rolled into a career, which is mind blowing to me that this is actually a possibility. And I absolutely love it. And that's kind of why I'm here today. So.
An influence on many as well along the way. Yourself has been, where it was nice for me because they're like, oh, you should have your own channel. I'm like, well, why should I have my own channel? I can just be on your video. You do all the work. That's
Reggie was the same way for a long time too. I know Reggie was like, I don't want my own channel.
Yeah, I've seen what you do. I don't want to have any part to do with that.
Yeah.
But then it turns out, YouTube. Yeah, anyone can have a YouTube channel. It's free. I got to my first 100,000 subscribers. I'm not bragging, but just using my phone. So you do not need the best camera or the light. It helps.
That's like Reggie too. Reggie
does everything on his phone.
To this day still uses his phone most of the time.
And it's not even. It's an iPhone 4. I mean, it's not like.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
But it works, because personality comes through.
Yeah, it's true. So again, we're gonna just kind of open it up to you guys. You ask us about video games, music, YouTube, whatever you want to do. Just kind of let the discussion go.
Shampoo, I guess. Yeah.
What's that?
Shampoo, like
shampoo.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to know what kind of shampoo, yeah, it's Pantene, by the way. And just raise your hand if you have a question for us. So. Yes.
What handhelds did you guys bring on your trip, and what games did you play on the way?
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with the Steam Deck right now, and and the reason for that is because for a long, I'm a physical game collector, and so that's my preference. However, on PC, that's not really an option. There, you can't really get them, but I was also really interested in kind of jumping into that world a little bit, and the Steam Deck was a very attractive thing. It's so powerful, and that's the one complaint about the Switch is that it is a little bit underpowered when it comes to third-party games. So when I got the Steam Deck, I went full in on Steam. I was like, okay, let's jump in and play a bunch of games. So Assassin's Creed Origin, playing a lot of games you can't get on Switch is kind of my thing. So played Stray on there, the cat game, the post-apocalyptic cat game, so awesome. What else am I? Oh, I was going back again, playing games you can't get on Switch. So Call of Duty, Black Ops 1 and 2, playing on those just because you can. It's really cool on a handheld. And I just picked up a game also called, I think it's called Teardown. So it's a voxel-based wrecking game where you are hired to destroy stuff, and it has voxel graphics, meaning that everything can fall apart. And it's all physics-based, kind of like Minecraft or whatever. Very fun, very addictive. Been playing that on my Steam Deck.
And that was just before takeoff. Yeah. I mean, it was still waiting to leave here. Yeah. The Switch is now my travel system of choice. Before that, my travel system of choice was the PSP Go, because I had all these compilation games. I could play those over and over again. But yeah, now it's the Switch. And on the way here, they just released that Garbage Pail Kids game, which they released it for the NES, and it's coming out physical to the Nintendo Entertainment System like next year. But it's on modern platforms now. So I played through that on my flight. It's about a 4-hour flight. What is it for you too? It's like 3.5, 4 hours.
Did you have a layover?
I always have a layover.
Yeah. It seemed like a little bit longer than that, didn't it? Maybe 5 hours.
It could
total,
been.
Something like that.
Know.
Yeah,
something like that.
And enough to get into a game and enjoy it for sure.
Yeah. I just kind of bounced around a little bit. I'm not like focusing on any one game right now. So I went through Garbage Pail Kids just because they grabbed it. I played a bit of Carl. Carl is and you'll see Nintendo's panel later on today, but he made Carl. I mean, he was a developer first before getting into YouTube. And I'm still trying to 100% that one because that's super fun. And really, I also have my Switch because I'm a huge anime fan too, and I have Crunchyroll on there, but my Crunchyroll app wouldn't work to like download episodes in advance so I can watch offline. So I was like, well, okay, because I usually just pop in, I just download like 50 Lupin the Third episodes or something and just kind of veg out to that. So nice. Yeah, but Garbage Pail Kids was the first one I kind of thought of.
Cool. Any other questions?
I guess we're done. Oh, no.
Aren't you forgetting about that Kid Icarus game?
Am I forgetting about the Kid Icarus
He's
game?
calling you out here.
I think he is. Wow. Kid Icarus for the 3DS, or which Kid Icarus game? I do like Kid Icarus for the 3DS, and I wish they would port that to the Switch. Yeah. Oh, I didn't bring. I do. I don't even know where I have it anymore. But I did have a little portable Nintendo. They could play actual Nintendo cartridges. It's not very travel friendly though, because it's bulky. It's just like, it's as big as one of those portable Dreamcast systems that you have.
It's like one of the you're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna be opening these boxes full of video games for my child.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, those were I just released a video showing off my Nintendo, like my NES collection, and it's surprisingly small. It's a lot smaller than you think it is now. Yes, I was collecting a full set, but along the way, I sold most of them so I could buy, especially early on, the heavy hitters when I was selling off my games. Like the Power Blade 2, like the Bubble Bobble 2, stuff like that, Panic Restaurant. I'd sell them to the collectors who are looking for a full set, but didn't have the heavy hitters yet. So I'd do the bro deal, but I'd use that money to buy the parts to make my own games, which turned out way more beneficial for me. But yeah, Kid Icarus was one I'll never get rid of, especially because it's Kid Icarus from my favorite hometown video store was Crazy Mike's Video, which was it was a Northwest. There was like 9 or 10 stores or something. And it's that one that I bought at that store. So it still has like the Crazy Mike sticker on the back. So that's why I'm never going to get rid of that game specifically.
Nice. I do play a lot of PSP because I'm going for a full set, and so I end up getting a lot of just random kind of last minute PSP games. And a lot of them are those kind of like, typically I'll be capturing footage for video, and so I'll be playing, some weird puzzle game that only came out on the PSP, stuff like that. So, but it's a fun system to try to go for a complete collection for, because most people don't care. So a lot of the games are actually really cheap, so I don't have to compete as much as, say, for a Nintendo set.
What systems y'all play the most of?
System we play the most? It's a good question. Currently, outside of capturing footage for Nintendo games, 'cause that's what usually when I play NES games, it's because I'm capturing footage for it anymore, or I'm streaming it on Twitch. The console I play the most, the one that gets the most use might be my PlayStation 5, because my kids and I also use it for Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, all that. But thanks to Game Pass, it's probably my Xbox Series S, because there's always something new to play on it. And I have an S just for Game Pass. And like I said, there's always something coming out, or, I'm in the middle of something on that.
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because I really play for two reasons. It's either doing YouTube, like for instance, when Reggie and I are doing a pickups video, we have 30 games to capture the footage for, and that's all across the board, whether it's everything we show on screen. We capture that footage. And so sometimes it's like, Xbox 360, Xbox One, whatever. And then it's for fun sometimes. But like last week, I was playing a lot of PlayStation 1 games because I was kind of going through my collection, and I'm going to do a collection video on that. But then for fun, I'll be like, very much like Riggs said here, the Xbox Series X with Game Pass. Like, there's always something new. It's like, it's an amazing deal for sure. And I use it primarily, like I definitely like owning games. And so I'll use it to decide, okay, do I really want to buy a physical version of this game, or am I okay just sort of renting it, kind of that thing. But I also do use the PS5 a lot because it plays most PS4 games too. So a lot of kind of current gen stuff for sure. Yeah, so definitely a mix. Yes.
So I know there's a whole lot of different ways that people look at how you can maximize your views when you're putting out YouTube videos. So what kind of things do you all do when you're looking at how you're gonna, topics you're gonna cover, maybe how you're gonna edit it, or the length? Like what kind of things are you considering when you're planning to make a video to put it out? And then how do you try to differentiate like something that makes your channels unique in the world of, like you said, everyone can have a YouTube account and lots of people like retro games, right?
That is that's the $1 million question, right? Is that
if everyone could figure it out, then we'd all have YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, that's one of it's the cool thing about YouTube, but it's also the thing that can drive you crazy as a creator, because at the end of the day, I don't have any control over whether it even gets delivered to you in your subscription or your front page at all, right? And so that's you hear a lot of things about the YouTube algorithm and how creators are trying to figure out the YouTube algorithm. And the thing is, nobody knows what it is. Like, people will claim they don't. Even YouTube will tell you that it's such a complex system that they don't even really know either. It learns based on what your viewing habits are, how often or how quickly you click off of a video, whether you pass this thumbnail by. So to answer your question, I try at some level to make the videos that I like and I want to do. And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. I was just thinking about this today because, my number one video today is a video I did last November. So I bought, just on a whim, the very last iPod that Apple released. It was the iPod Touch Series 7. I bought it last November or whenever it was. And I did a video on it. I was like, well, this is kind of interesting, I'll do a video. It'll release on a Tuesday, kind of a throwaway video. It's gotten 2.6 million views, and it's my number one video today. It continues to get views, about 60,000 views every single day for months and months and months. I have no control over that. It's really weird, right? But through that video, then if people watch it, YouTube will then recommend a pickups video with Reggie or a top 10 video or a hidden gems video. And then that's the thing that kind of triggers watch time, discovery, all that sort of stuff. It's pretty wild for sure.
And I do a lot of that on mine too, where like if I did, here's 10 Nintendo games you've never heard of before. People click on it, great, they watch it. Then the next time you open up YouTube, say tomorrow, if I did like a cereal review, you're like, I don't care about that. I just wanted Nintendo games. Yeah. Then you wouldn't watch that, and then that's when YouTube might say, "Oh, well, okay, so you're not interested in this guy. Fine, well, stop suggesting him to you." But if I kept doing Nintendo stuff, then maybe you would kind of fall down that rabbit hole, which is what everyone loves. And then once you're hooked, hopefully you'll watch another one. When you get to the end of the video, saying, "Hey, watch this video next. Watch this video next," because you want that kind of release your average views per viewer. Yeah. Try to get that up and retention and all that. So it's just to find that thing that works. And sometimes I've literally done this. I just look at my videos and like, oh, here's a video I did 2 years ago that did pretty well. I'll redo that, but today, and some of the games might be the same or whatever, just word it differently with a headline and thumbnail or something. But I've done that a few times too. It's just find that thing that works for you. And then YouTube will hopefully start suggesting, people your way, where it's like, you watch one of my videos, but then your video might be suggested. Perfect. And that's almost what you want, is to not ride coattails, but according to YouTube, kind of, yeah. That's a great way for it to be known.
YouTube gives us a lot of analytics on the backside, and it tells us, your viewers are also watching this. And it'll be like, for me, it's Spawnwave, GameSack, John Riggs, Reggie. It tells everybody, it tells you this is what you're, it tells us what they like. But it's also kind of interesting. So, like, for instance, it's told me that like my number one search term is Castlevania. I've never done a video on Castlevania ever, but people who do a search on YouTube and Google will land on my page because they've typed in the word Castlevania. What am I supposed to do with that? Like, what I mean? It's like, I could do a video on it, I guess, but it's really weird sometimes, how that, so that's why I think even YouTube doesn't really know what people are doing sometimes on their site. My philosophy is just put out videos that you like and you are proud of. And also, if you put out enough of them, then you'll like he said, it's like, if
that rabbit hole,
Yeah, if there's a rabbit hole for people to go down, then sometimes that's the trigger that will get you success on YouTube, right? If you click on one of my pickups videos with Reggie, I've got 50 others that you can watch. You know what I mean? So.
And they're like 9 hours long too. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's really weird because my pickups videos are the opposite of YouTube. Like most videos on YouTube, they want you to be shorts now. They want to be a minute or less, or 8 minutes or 10 minutes. And my pickups videos are an hour, and it's the opposite of what YouTube typically wants or likes. But because we change the game every 2 minutes that we show, people watch to the very end. You know what I mean? And so it's very unusual in that regard.
So we don't know is the answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I've been collecting houses for about 3 years, as soon as I started my job. But like, one thing that's always like kind of, I was like dollars PC game, and every time I try to look up for like the best dollars thing, nothing. It's just like nobody's made videos on it, nobody's like, I know you're a big like PC game guy, like that's a big box. But like, I just wanted to know like, you got like recommendations for those kind of games, because it's like, it's in the dark, like,
Recommendations for DOS games, huh?
Yeah. So
Interesting.
the reason why, well, old school PC gaming is tough because it was so tied to specific hardware that changed every 2 years. So, like for instance, people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to play DOS games," like you're saying right there. How do I do that? And there is no answer because, well, you would need to go get a Pentium 100, 8 megabytes of RAM, or 16 maybe total.
Nice.
Because if you put too much RAM in it, the BIOS chip on the motherboard won't detect it. So, and you're going to need a 3D Voodoo 2 or 3. You know what I mean? And all that stuff becomes very. All of a sudden, you're out. You're like, okay, that's it's complicated. Because at the time in the 90s, it was hard to game on a PC because it was changing every 16 months or 2 years, and to recreate that today is tough. Now, you can do some tricks like. You can go into compatibility mode of Windows and it'll try to emulate some of that. But those games were so resource intensive for the time, they really need that hardware. So it's pretty tough to do as far as getting all that stuff to run. That's why for me, we have a place called RePC, which it's technically a recycling center for computers, but over the decades, they've got all the stuff, and you can go down there and you can buy a brand new, but like you bought a Gateway 2000 computer back in 1998, they have it there, and you can take it home and run all these games. So that's pretty cool. That's what I did a couple years ago. I was like, I'm just going to go down there, and it's $200. It was a great deal, and it's comes with like Windows 98, on it and a fresh install. But your question about the top PC games is tough too, because PC, personal computer, is really 1981 through, for most people, it even goes to today. But for my mind, it's like 2005, Windows XP. So it's a lot of years and tens of thousands of games, right? So a lot of people would say Doom, Quake, whatever, Baldur's Gate, all these kind of games that came out. But it'd be a tough list to make for sure, because it would be the same thing as saying, what is the top console games of all time, right? You're going to start at Atari, and you're going to go all the way up until PlayStation 5. How would you do that? It'd be brutal, right?
Exclusive, stuff like I know there's a lot of ports like Mega Man on DOS.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned like the Mega Man and stuff like that, because the irony is that a lot of those PC ports are horrible, right? Because they didn't have the graphics cards. They had EGA graphics, 16-bit, or no, like 4-bit color sometimes, but they're fun to collect. Like, Metal Gear Solid, the PC port is actually kind of collectible, you know what I mean? Because it's so weird and hard to get running. So I guess to answer your question, it's like in order to tell you like recommendations for PC, I'd need to know what is your PC, right? Like what is the computer you have? If you've got a Windows XP machine that has a 3D accelerator card that is supported by a lot of those games, and that'll get you a long way. Anyways, I can nerd out about this, so I apologize. But to your point though, I've been tempted in my YouTube channel to kind of go deeper into this sort of stuff, because you're right. There's basically Lazy Game Reviews, who does a fantastic job. There's the 8-bit guy, and but there's not a lot out there really about that sort of stuff. So I've been thinking about kind of digging deeper into that. It'd be kind of fun.
You just did, so it's fine.
I know.
I recognize like 6 of those words. So
yeah, I know. That's the problem, is that every video would be very complex. So it's definitely a challenge for sure. Yeah.
Have you guys ever considered to move out from YouTube or try new social media platforms?
Oh, like TikTok or
OnlyFans.
only? Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Only PC fans. There we go. Yeah, along with YouTube comes the social media. So it's just another platform to get your stuff out there, or even to be found or be known, and then hopefully they'll click into your YouTube channel too. So yes, I have a TikTok account. I don't use it very often. Yes, I have Instagram. I don't use it much for, I mean, like reels and stuff. I don't use it much to even promote my channel, but maybe they'll like me enough to find my YouTube channel. But you do a lot with social media too, as far as like people finding your channel and stuff.
Yeah, so very early on, again, I was mentioning that I don't have much control on YouTube, and so in order to combat that, I specifically was like, okay, what do I have control over? And in other social media platforms is a place to be active on there, build communities, and hopefully drive people to my latest videos. So that's why when I release a video on Fridays, it also goes immediately to Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Those are my number 3, or my top 3. But I also do Tumblr and all this other stuff just to have it out there, because YouTube is a search engine. And so really what you want in order to get discovered is to be searchable on YouTube, basically. That's kind of how that they work. And so I put all my stuff out there on all the social media with all the tags and everything like that, knowing that eventually that'll funnel people back to my YouTube channel. And the reason why I think most people focus on YouTube is because their monetization system is the best, hands down. They handle it all. You don't have to go out and search for ads or whatever. They handle all the legal aspects of that, and they just do it for you, which is really cool. Now, they do take 40% of our ad revenue. Is that what it is? Is it 60%?
I don't think they don't take more than 50. So if anything, it would be 40.
It might be 40.
Yeah.
So there is a cost associated with that, but you can't get around that no matter what. So, right, but I guess the point is that, so for instance, like on TikTok, the way that they do it, because you notice that your videos, I don't know if you've used TikTok, or Reels, it doesn't give you an ad before you watch the video. Like you're sitting there scrolling, it's very quick. So the way they do monetization is there's a big pile of money that they then divide among all the people based on their watch time. So, but in order to make any money on that, you've got to get 1 million views on a video. On YouTube, if you get 1 million views, you're doing extremely well. I mean, that would be, that's a very good video. But on TikTok, I think it's just a whole other ball game. So much more difficult to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I stream on Twitch as well. And there's some people who have YouTube channels. They're never on Twitch. You're never on Twitch. And on the flip side too, there are people who solely stream on Twitch because they don't want to edit videos, and that's the difference between. I compared it once to someone else, that the difference between YouTube and Twitch is like Hollywood and Broadway, where in Hollywood everything's tight, cut, edited, filmed, pushed out there. I'm done. Wash your hands. But it's out there. Broadway, New York, that's live theater, live stage. So you go out there, whatever happens, speed of light. As soon as you're done, you clock out. Don't have to edit anything. So it's whatever is easiest for you, and yeah.
And to that point, so for instance, like I was saying, my number 1 video today is an iPod video that was from a year ago. That would not happen on Twitch, right? Twitch is now. So again, it's like it's a longer tail is what they call that, basically, a longer sort of like shelf life of your videos by putting them on YouTube, because people do search there. And people just don't search on Twitch you don't go to Twitch and type in iPod. You know what I mean? That's not how people use that. So.
Is there a certain game that you guys love that like the community necessarily like hates?
Oh, we get this question pretty regularly, don't we? I know. My answer last time was Cyberpunk, because everyone trashed it, but I love it, and I still love it.
Now it's cool.
But it came well because the new the show, the Edge Runners or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
and they patched it a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I can think of a game though. Let's see.
I mean, I guess my stock answer for this is Call of Duty, specifically the single player missions or the single player campaign. People like to trash Call of Duty because it comes out every year. Maybe it's similar, whatever they say. But I always get it a year or two after the fact, so I never pay $60 for it because I'm really only interested in that Michael Bay style, over the top campaign. And the other thing too about Call of Duty I like is the fact that they always are the cutting edge on graphics. You know what I mean? So you get it like you get the version for the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, and it looks gorgeous. And it only lasts 5 hours. Like it's just like a cheesy little movie. And so I actually like it. Like again, replaying through Black Ops 1 and 2. It's so stupid, but it's fun.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I kind of dig that. You know what I mean? Now my nephew gets into zombies. and the multiplayer on zombies on Call of Duty, that's impressive. I love watching him do that because he's running around like a jackrabbit, shooting dudes in the face. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. But I wouldn't have the time to dedicate to get good at that. So I appreciate it when other people do, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of like Friday the 13th for the NES. Because people usually. I'll wait. It's okay. Because, I mean, so many games have that LJN logo and you kind of discredit them at first, but LJN was just the publisher. Friday the 13th was made by Atlas, and you're not going to laugh about Atlas, are you? Of course not. So Atlas made Friday the 13th, but LJN published it, they put it out there, but it was developed by Atlas. And same with like Nightmare on Elm Street is LJN, but it was made by Rare. I mean, so there's just because it says LJN on it, I know every video game nerd had a lot to do with that.
WrestleMania with the little logos.
No, I can't do anything for WrestleMania. I can't do anything for those early WWE games. Oh my God, yeah. I played them anyway, just because I had to support them as a fan. Just like I played, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES because I had to support them as I was a fan, even though the game's not great. But yeah, I mean, like, just games like that. There's a lot of games get a bad rep, but going back to them now, I think they're just fine. Sometimes a little confusing a little bit, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And also too, the price comes into that, right? If you're paying full price for something, then your expectations go a little higher. But that is fun to kind of go back and play crappy games that maybe you paid $5 for. Yeah, sure. It played for 30 minutes, half an hour, whatever.
Get your money out of it.
Yeah, totally.
There you go. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. What's your favorite Blockbuster rental from back in the day?
Oh.
Specific? Did you work there? Like, do I need to bring it back?
You have a late charge? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Personally, back in the day, my dad was a janitor, so he wouldn't get off work until really late, and we would be the last people to get to Blockbuster right at the stroke of midnight when they closed. So I always got stuck playing LJN games. By the time I get it. So I view Blockbuster as a little skewed. So what kind of games did you get?
Oh, well, my Blockbuster is skewed because they literally accused me of breaking and entering, which is a true story. And that could be another panel for another time. I did a quick video on it, but it's a true story. They literally accused me of breaking and entering, and I had to go down to the police station. I had to take a lie detector test to prove that I didn't do it when I was like 18, 19, something like that.
What? No, yeah, you can't just leave that hanging. Like what?
That's all it was. That's all it
Like,
was.
What did you look shifty? Were you
No.
Were you wearing a mask?
This is the quickest footnote abbreviated story I can do. And my friend Dan's in the audience, and he remembers when this happened. Policeman knocked on the door. They said, "Are you John Riggs?" I am. They said, "We have reason to believe that you broke into a Blockbuster, stole this, that, and the other. Can we check your room?" Back then, I was like, "Oh, go for it. I don't care." Now I would have said like, "Well, let's see your warrant or whatever." They went in there. It was whoever it was. They broke a window with a brick or a rock. I don't remember. And they said that they stole like a 27-inch television. This is a CRT, so 27-inch TV. This is already 5,000 pounds. And a couple of their rental systems for the Genesis and Super Nintendo. Why did I need to steal them? I already had them. So why would I need, anyway. The person on the security camera and I had a similar coat. The difference was I'm 6'5", and my coat goes down to just a little bit past my backside. And the person on the camera, similar coat, but went down to his ankles. I was like, seriously, it's not me. But they had to go through the process because they arrested me in the first place. So we went down to the police station. I'm just like, let me just take a lie detector test, get this over with. Of course I took the lie detector test. Of course I passed it. I think they caught the guy later. Do you remember? I don't know. They did, yeah. And it was something like whoever jumped in and climbed out, what happened? Did they cut themselves on the glass?
They did that, but the funniest part of it was you had Graves' disease at the time. This person was running around the store, and you got winded walking down the street.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had Graves' disease, which is a thyroid disorder. So, I mean, all these things added up. I'm just like, it's because we had a similar coat. They had to peg it on. So they ended up catching them. But after that happened, I was like, well, the hell with these guys. I was like, again, this is during a time we had a Blockbuster, we had a Crazy Mike's Video, we had another video store. It was during a time when you could rent videos at gas stations and grocery stores and all that too. So I was like, I didn't need Blockbuster. But my favorite Blockbuster rental You know what? Unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but after the PlayStation 1 came out, it was the only rental store in the vicinity that did have PlayStation 1 rentals within the first month of its release. So it was probably like, Ridge Racer or something like that. That's what I remember. But before that, again, I didn't go there very often because we had, Blockbuster was corporate, but we had the cool local, people wore just their street clothes and, they'll lock the door afterwards and, drink inside the store and just go skateboarding up and down the aisles and stuff. It would have been a great TV show. Yeah. I probably Ridge Racer. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I grew up in really small towns, so I think at the time when rentals were happening, I was like, it's a little town called Coopville, Washington, 3,000 people. There was no rent. I think the rental place was like a little mom and pop place. I remember going in there, and it was like one of those places like wood paneling and stuff. And my cousin and I, we rented the original Legend of Zelda. So at that time, we also rented the console, which came in a carrying case, and Legend of Zelda, and it was interesting at the time because I grew up playing games in the arcade, quarter munchers, right? You play them for a couple minutes, and there was never really a story or an ending really. And playing Legend of Zelda was just like, wow, this is this is a game that you sit down and play for hours, And I was blown away by it. I was like, it was a really new experience, and I remember having an entire weekend to try to play through it all. And you'd rent 3 games or something like that at a time, and it was really fun. It definitely got me into console gaming for sure.
Yeah, it makes me think like what you said with Call of Duty. What you like about it is that it's short. Yeah, those rental games were great because you could finish them in like 4 to 6 hours.
You were motivated to do that, right? Because if you had to go back and ask your mom to keep renting it, she'd be like,
Well, that was the beautiful thing about the PlayStation 1 was because you had your own memory card, so you could rent RPGs. One of my favorite PS1 games, mostly for nostalgia. I tried playing it recently. It's still okay, but Kingsfield. Instead of purchasing Kingsfield, because I didn't have $50 when I was in high school, but I did, have a couple of bucks every other weekend. So on my memory card, I ended up beating Kingsfield, but it took me about 2 months of renting it kind of every other weekend to get all the way through it, But I do miss that.
Yeah.
So you guys clearly are console game fans, but I'm curious your thoughts on like the Stadia or the Luna, like those streaming game services. Stadia is now out.
Right.
But like, is there a future in that, or is it going to stick with the console games and PS5 and Xbox?
I think there's definitely a future in like cloud gaming eventually, like when the internet just works, which may or may not be in our lifetime, I'm not sure. But I could kind of see that kind of progression of just all of a sudden there are no more physical media. Fortunately, there's also 50 years of physical media, so collecting's not going anywhere. But I think you'll see something like that. Or even you'll see people like the Evercade who come out with a new system that makes their own cartridges to collect for it. We might see more of that once everything goes cloud.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because when the Stadia first came out, I did a video on it where it wasn't for me. I couldn't do it because our Comcast agreement that we had a data cap, and you hit that so quickly, right? Now we have one that does not, but for the first year I was like, well, this is not even and I live in Seattle, so it's not like, it was just really wild. I was like, this is never going to happen unless they fix that issue, the data issue, right? Because games are just getting bigger and bigger. 4K is huge, and trying to stream that in real time is a challenge. I think the bigger challenge is there's 2 of them. It's lag. Latency is always going to be a problem, and it gets better all the time. But most of the stuff that we're streaming on over the web, like Netflix and YouTube, there can be a couple milliseconds of delay because you're just watching a movie. But when you are playing an action game and timing means everything, like if you're playing Elden Ring, or some of these games that you have to block, or fighting games, you can't have any lag, and there's always going to be a latency of some type with a streaming service. So I'm not entirely sure how they're going to get past that, really. As games get bigger and the data gets more complex, that's definitely a problem. The other thing too, I think is even a bigger issue for me as a gamer, is that they delist things. And going to stream is even worse. So for instance, I mentioned the Steam Deck. It's great, right? And I'm thinking, oh, cool, I'm going to be able to play the PC versions of some of these games that I had on the 360, like Need for Speed, these are Blur, some of these racing games I'm really into or whatever. They're nowhere to be found on PC at this point. And they're not really, in my mind, that old, maybe 10, 15 years, but EA has delisted them. They're gone forever. And I was just like, what? Like, why is that? Like, Windows, they should be able to run this flawlessly. Some games it does of that era. And so that was a real eye opener. I was like, oh, okay. I can't rely on this at all. I actually went out that weekend and bought every single Need for Speed game on the 360 that ever came out. Because I'm like, okay, I'm going to have it, just so I have it there. And I can always play it on my 360 or a console. But that's the other thing about streaming is that, it sucks because sometimes there's little indie games that you might enjoy that maybe didn't sell very well, but you would like to play that 10, 20 years from now. You might not think you will, but but we're all in that same boat where we kind of get nostalgic a little bit about stuff, and having that stream to you, it's just, unless it's making a company money, there's no motivation for them to maintain servers or all that stuff, right? So I don't know. I'm not really that big of a fan. I get it. The technology is cool, and Microsoft has their own version of it for Game Pass Ultimate, where you can stream to like iPads and stuff. It's cool, for sure, but I'm very wary of it as well, And I would hope developers would be too. Yeah.
So like younger, I'm going after the 90s.
You're calling me old. That's cool.
We get it.
But like, I'm always hearing from the older collective, right? The crazy deal of like Funko, and they're finding Panzer Dragoon Saga for like $10. Like, what are you guys like biggest find? Where just like, oh, this is crazy, $1,000 game, like $10.
Oh, even from back then? Well, I mean, back in the day, there wasn't a value on it.
Yeah.
Like, again, when I was collecting these games in the 90s, it was just because I may not see them again. And so you'd see games like, I think I maybe paid $12 for like Contra Force, for instance. But you'd find Contra for $1 because everybody already had Contra. You don't need Contra. Now Contra goes for $30, $35, whatever it is, as far as the NES games go. But back then, we weren't collecting for a value because it wasn't even a thing that people even considered. It was just us who just wanted to play these old games and have a way to play them when we wanted to play them.
Yeah, that's a tough question because often people message me and be like, "Hey, how much is this game worth?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I got that game 20 years ago. I have no idea what it's worth." I mean, so to answer your question, I mean, like I mentioned, I'm just recently going through my PS1 collection, and again, I haven't really thought about it for a while because I stopped collecting that actively probably 5-10 years ago. And seeing the prices today, I was like, because the app I used was telling me the value. I was like, oh my gosh, like I just have this game, like
in a box.
Just like laying, I mean, it's like shocking to me.
It's a coffee coaster,
Yeah, but it's in many ways it's every console. Like the PS2 also. Like I collected the PS2 when it first came out. And to see some of those RPGs, I'm like shocked. Like you see a Xenosaga 3 for 300, 400. I don't know how much it goes, but I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like it's definitely crazy for sure. That's why at shows like this, I'm buying 3DS games because I know that most people don't care, right? It's a couple of years. But I'll be nostalgic for it, or I'll want it 5-10 years from now, and it'll be really difficult to find because for a while, GameStop was just destroying all they were throwing out the cases. So we know that there's not that many out there. Or same with PSP, stuff like that. But, I hope that answers your question. I mean, I don't have any specific answers, but there are a lot of them that I'm kind of shocked when I look at, for sure,
What do you think of the new Silent Hill 2 reimagined?
Yeah, I'm for it. I'll play it. I mean, I like Silent Hill. I wanted to do Silent Hill 3 is my favorite of the series, so I'm hoping that Silent Hill 2 is successful enough for them to make Silent Hill 3. I'm kind of at that level, and I'm a huge VR gamer too, so I'm hoping that there'll be like a VR patch or some kind of way to play that in VR. I think that'd be completely awesome.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with those either, because for me, it doesn't take away the original. I have it. And so if I really want that original experience, I can do that very easily, And it seems like I've enjoyed some of the other remakes of the Resident Evil, what they did 2 and 3, right?
Yeah. 2 and 3, and redoing 4, and I mean, they redid 4 for Quest 2, which was wonderful.
Oh, that's
It might have been
right.
my favorite Quest game. Is just the remake of Resident Evil 4, because I have Resident Evil 4 on I have it on GameCube, but I could never get too far because I can't aim the way I want to aim. But in Quest, you just literally aim, So hopefully we'll see that.
Yeah. So.
You guys feel discouraged by new games, even physical games? They're coming out with kind of low performance or not the right way when they came out and they come with downloadable content. So it's like the physical game is not ready, but they're just probably companies just waiting for release patches and all that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's not
rough
my
now.
favorite. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, if you buy a game, it would be nice if it was finished and functioning properly on the disc, so that way you could archive that and have it forever. So there is an aspect of my collecting of sort of like the Xbox. I'm going to say the Xbox One, probably on PS4, where even though I have a lot of physical games for it, that I know that every single one of them, if I was a pop-in, would have a massive download, which is it bugs me for sure. And I just heard that the new Call of Duty comes on a Blu-ray that's using, now I don't know if this is necessarily true, but it was reported that it's like only 80 megabytes or something like that. There is no game on the disc. It's giving you a Blu-ray, but it's almost completely empty.
Interesting.
Which, when those servers go down in 5 years or whatever, that physical version will be completely useless.
Right.
Which is again, they have the Blu-ray. Don't they have 100 gigabyte Blu-rays? They could do it.
Yeah.
But it's a 150 gigabyte game.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what we did back in the old days? We had 2 of them. You know what I mean? You flip it. On PC, we personally at Sierra, we would ship games on 13 floppies. That's what you did. But you own the game and it would work, and you could still play that today. It was the full game. So it's not my favorite thing. I understand why they do it. I don't think that the one thing that kind of drives me nuts, though, is that it in some ways it feels unnecessary, because I understand it on PC, because everybody's PC is a little bit different. Everybody has this a little bit different drivers or motherboard or RAM, whatever, or hard drive. But on the console, there's a PS4 is for the most part a PS4. They should be able to program it so that it runs optimally on that, and it shouldn't need very many patches. You know what I mean? So it is frustrating for.
Sometimes specifically talking about the Cyberpunk or the grandfather really.
Yeah. Okay. Cyberpunk. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Cyberpunk, for instance, but I also think Cyberpunk suffered from, when they originally announced that it was going to be sort of like what was the current gen, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and they really, really tried to fight to make their game fit on that, when really it had grown past the scope of that. Right. It should have been a next gen PC game. I think that their launch would have gone a lot better. But I don't work there, so I don't know, but that's my guess.
They also came out and said the QA department was not doing their proper job on the older system.
Well, and I mean, again, any system that you add to a QA, because I used to work in QA, the bigger pool of things you have to test against, the more complex it is, right? And so I'm not surprised to hear that at all. Again, I think QA would have been a lot easier for everyone in development if it would have been 3 things: PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X.
Indeed. Right here.
I want to ask, kind of in that same line of vein of questioning, what are your guys' overall opinions of the live service model of gaming, or having games as a service, where the game is never finished technically, it's always going to be getting updated until they just decide to shut it.
Oh, sure, like Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite, Overwatch, Warzone, all those.
I mean, it's not bad because you only need one game, and your one game just keeps evolving and keeps changing and keeps becoming a new thing. So I mean, Fortnite makes a huge deal out of it. I mean, a new storyline where the world turns upside down, and now here's the new map and everything like that.
I mean, it makes them a ton of money, and it's an ongoing payment system, which I think that's why the developers do it. Instead of getting a one-time $60, you get every month or something like that. And so they end up making a ton of money, right? It's the World of Warcraft model, essentially you're in on it.
Yeah. The expansions and
yeah, it's not for me personally because I'm not going to put in 200 hours in probably any game. It's just because I get bored. I get bored honestly after about anywhere from 15 hours to 60. Like Mass Effect 2 is my max, right? You know what I mean? That I want a 50 to 60 hour game. If it's an RPG, anything more than that, I start wandering a little bit. Or 15 hours max on like a shooter or something like that. And I'm not interested in playing a game for 200, 400 hours personally. But it could be a good value for people if you are into it. If you are looking for that one game that evolves over time, all your friends are there. It's more of a social aspect to it, So I guess that's the thing is that the nice thing is that games are big enough to accommodate all of that stuff. If you want a little indie game that you can play for 2 hours, you got that. If you want the epic, massively multiplayer RPG or the shooters or whatever, I mean, we're so much bigger than it was. To me, it blows me away compared to what it was in the 80s, in the 90s. Like, man, it's everything today. It's amazing.
Go for it.
On those same lines, like, does that make Nintendo, especially like Nintendo Switch, like more collectible and more longevity? Does that give them a better place in, I don't know, 10, 15 years?
I will tell you as a collector, the Switch is one of my favorite systems to collect for that reason, is because the games typically, well, I don't know if that's really true, but it seems like that it is, the game is on that cartridge. Not always. Sometimes it has a little bar, it tells you that there's a download, but I do like the Switch for that reason, is that it seems like it's just, I don't know. Maybe they have downloads too.
There are, and there's a couple of times where you'll see like the physical box, but it's just like a download code, and you'll see that a couple of times too, which is kind of a letdown. But also, but thanks to people like Limited Run Games, Premium Edition Games, all these
Super
other companies,
rare, that stuff.
People will release a digital game for however much in the eShop, but then these other companies will come in saying, "Hey, can we put that as a physical game for you, so you can actually have that preserved, and maybe preserved with all the DLC, or something that could make it even special, even better." I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was getting at. Is I do like those versions of it. Those are pretty cool, and often they're like really small runs too, which worries me because if you don't jump on those right away, it's like, man, whoever goes for a complete Switch collection 5-10 years from now, good luck. I think it's going to be impossible. Or very, very expensive.
Right.
Speaking of the Switch, what do you think of these game compilations that have been coming out, like all the Castlevania games that were on the NES?
Oh, sure.
Or the Contra compilation?
No, I love them because a lot of times they'll also work with like the Video Game History Foundation. So it'll be the games too, yes, but then it'll also have like behind the scenes, or like here's maps and behind the scenes footage and things like that, like the recent Cowabunga collection with the Ninja Turtles and all that. It's fun to play these games again, but again, there's also 1,000 ways to play the same games anywhere, whether it be physical or through a Raspberry Pi or a Mister or anything. It's nice to have the games there too, but it's nice that they add all the extras to make it more, give you that more value. I love behind the scenes type footage, so. It's great news. Every time there's a compilation, I'm all for it. Especially like if there's arcade games that you can't just find on the NES, for instance.
Yeah, I like compilations as well. My favorite generation for that was the PlayStation 2 era, because you had all the crazy Intellivision collections. There's like three volumes, or no, Midway. It was like
Midway had 3 volumes. Intellivision,
Atari, Activision.
Taito had 2 of them that were like the arcade versions of Bubble Bobble, and even games like. Everyone talks about Operation Wolf. No one talks about Operation Thunderbolt, which is from Taito as well. But that's on there too. So it's a great way to play, like Elevator Action and Elevator Action Returns, which was on the Saturn. So
yeah, so I actually like all of those. So they're really fun
and cheap too. They're like $20,
Yeah, totally.
Yes. What would you say are like your top suggestions for caring for like an older system, like an NES, a Super Nintendo? Like what kind of things would be good to do to care for them?
To care for it.
To hug it and love it and call it George.
I don't know if there's any secret technique outside of. Sometimes these. Cody from Pink Gorilla told me there's no such thing as a broken Nintendo 64. It may not work, but you can fix it. I mean, and a lot of these systems, and there's even third-party companies who are making solutions to, if a game system is broken for any reason, like the blinking light win for the NES, where it's like, the board's gone and you don't want to boil the pins, or one of those like wives' tales or something, which does work, by the way. They make these solutions to get these systems working again too. And I love the fact they're also making so like original consoles can have, like a composite or HDMI port or something. There's a lot of these ways to kind of, trick out your system and all that too.
Yeah, that's tricky because also the flip side of that though is that some of these consoles will fail, and they just will fail because they sat there because the capacitors leak, and which is a real problem with like I ran into this recently because I have a very special edition original Xbox it has a signature of Bill Gates on it, right? So it's very collectible, and I would want to keep that system running, and I think it was having a problem booting up or something like that. But anyways, I took it to Cody at Pink Gorilla, who repaired it, and sure enough, it was getting a leaky capacitor, which if you leave that there, I had no idea. I wasn't even really using it, right? Thankfully he fixed that. And there's a lot of consoles like that. I think I don't know if the Saturn is one of them, but there's a lot of consoles.
Yeah, and some handhelds too.
Yeah.
Like especially like the Turbo Express, the Game Gear. There's so many times you can literally buy a Game Gear capacitor set because it just happens all the time with Game Gear specifically.
Yeah, so it's definitely a part of kind of what you have to live with whenever you have a lot of those systems. But again, what I would say is that find the people either online or in your community that are good with soldering, which I am not, who can fix those kind of problems for you, and make sure that they don't get bigger than they need to be, for sure.
And we have enough time for one more question. Better make it a good one.
Oh.
Okay, two of them rapid fire. Three of them rapid fire. Go for it.
What do you think is your rarest or luckiest find? Like just one of those that you would not have gotten if you weren't in the right.
Oh, right place, right time. Oh, you have a couple of them I know of off the top of my head.
I do. The thing that I always think about is the U.S. version of the 64DD disk drive. So that was a series of events that happened. Answering a Craigslist ad, going to the guy's house. On the floor is this weird Nintendo 64 device. He doesn't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And it turns out that it is a prototype, the unreleased prototype of the disk drive for the N64. And what's unique about it is that it is in English. So that thing was it was released very small in Japan, and they intended to bring it here. So it takes floppy disks for the Nintendo 64. And so mine has it in English. There is no other version of that in the world that we've ever found. So, and that happened because Nintendo was up in Seattle. So that is the thing that happens up there. It's hard to beat that. That's pretty unusual.
Mine's not nearly as exciting, but the thing that happened recently, I think it was it was literally last year. I was at a convention and somebody had a Gizmondo. I don't know if anybody knows a Gizmondo, portable handheld. Swedish Mafia was involved in the backing of it or something like that. And they didn't know what it was on the table. And I'm just looking at it and I was like, oh, how much is that? I pointed to it. And they're like, we don't even know what it is. Make us an offer. And I was like, if you tell me to make you an offer, I'm going to lowball you. And he says, shoot out a number, $20, sold. And then he was like, okay, so here's your Gizmondo, which works. And then he was like, oh, wait, I got this other thing too. Here's a Gizmondo branded AC cord. Oh, here's a bunch of games that were laid around, including Sticky Balls. By the way, Sticky Balls, #1 seller for Gizmondo. Hilarious. And it was $20. So again, not as exciting, but it was the first thing that popped up. There might be a better gaming item thing. Well, I'm not supposed to have them, but I do have... It's a good thing we're not being recorded or anything. I have a couple of Switch trays that when a company gets Nintendo Switch games, before they put them in the cartridges, they come on this tray that you can kind of just pop them out. And Nintendo forces you to destroy them. Anyway, so... So that's fun. And if you look at it, you're like, it looks like an ice tray. It's nothing, Although I could make ice cubes out of them. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, so stuff like that, Nothing super exciting.
That is cool. Are we ever going to see another I Hate You video?
I Hate You and Gamer Eats episodes are like, yeah, number one request for me. We would love to. It's just that
Paul's busy, isn't he?
Yeah, but the pandemic happened, and Paul has to be really careful about this sort of stuff. He bought a cookie company, and it's doing extremely well. And so I hang out with him every once in a while, and so we would love to. So knock on wood.
Never say never.
Yeah, never say never. But one day we will make it happen for sure.
And I Hate You Gamer Eats episode, get them both taken care
get
of.
it out of the way. Yeah. The thing is, we love making those videos. They're so much fun because we just goof off. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
What's the very next game you have in mind that is coming out sooner to play?
Oh, next game we're looking forward to. No, I mean, just like what game are you?
It's the developers of Dead Space, but it's not called Dead Space. There is a what is it?
Calypso Protocol.
Calypso Protocol.
That game looks badass. So it's the original creators of Dead Space that went on their own, and it looks fantastic. And in addition to that, I am looking forward to the Dead Space remake that they're doing, or whatever. That looks. I love those games, so I'm pretty excited for those.
Well, it goes back to Kid Icarus, and I will say the Kid Icarus 3DS game for the Nintendo Switch that hasn't been announced yet, but when it is, it'll be that. And with that, I thank you.
Yes, thank you. Before you leave, can we do a little photo, though, with you guys?
Oh, yeah. We'll stand down here, and we'll take a photo of everyone. Okay. So if you don't want to be in the photo, you could bounce if you'd like, but it'll be super quick.